and because the move is so quick, we are going to be back and forth to Indiana some. So in addition to speaking in other places in the country, so it promises to be a very crazy summer. So if you think I'm ignoring you, I probably just am not seeing your emails, okay? Or saw your text at 2 in the morning, something like that. 2 in the morning is only 11, at night when we're on the West Coast. And I am speaking out there in a while. Actually, we're in Alaska later this summer speaking. So what are they? They're 4 hours different from us? Yeah. And I'll try not to respond at 2 in the morning. Okay? Anyway, so the two websites, Timeless Healing Insights, that's where this will take you. The card will take you to Timeless Healing Insights. That's mostly free programming. And we work with a lot of churches who use that website. Compass Health is our corporate website. So you can buy all our books, our videos, other things there. Materials that can help you run a blood pressure program in your church and other things. So those are the two different websites that we work with. So I've taken care of those questions that some of you have asked. And we will start in with our presentation with a word of prayer. Let's pray together. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity we have of coming together and learning from you. We really do want you to be our teacher. Please give my mind clarity as far as what we should discuss and what we shouldn't discuss, what would be most practical for the group. We thank you that we can trust you to help us do that, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. All of you have heard the phrase good news in a Seventh-day Adventist church. And good news, of course, is another way of expressing what? Yeah, the gospel means good news. Well, that is the ultimate good news, but we've also got good news today when it comes to high blood pressure. And that good news is that you are in the right place right now. If you have questions about high blood pressure. We are actually going to look at 7 key blood pressure messages as we begin. I'll try to look at this quickly just to give us some background. I've already touched on this in some of the remarks I made earlier. But the first thing I want you to realize is that high blood pressure problem is a global problem. It is staggering. We have spoken on this topic in many places in the world. We first came out with our book, like I said, about a decade ago. We started getting invitations to speak overseas as well. And we said, well, we better, our book is U.S. data. We said, we better find out what it's like abroad. And basically, anywhere you go in the world, 30 to 50% of the world population has high blood pressure. It is still a major public health issue, a lot of attention. This was just a recent program the World Health Organization put out less than a year ago. High blood pressure, what? High stakes. So public health officials realize this is really a huge problem. 30 to 50% of the population with high blood pressure. You'll see there the number 140/90. We'll learn in a few minutes that is not really an optimal blood pressure. Your blood pressure should be significantly lower than that if you want to have the best health. But even if you use that number, that older guideline, 30 to 50% of the population with those kind of numbers. And for example, if you look at any of the ABC countries, why do you think we call these the ABC countries? Yeah, their first letter of the name of the country starts with an A, B, or C. Austria, Belgium, Canada, all of these countries, whether you can read this slide or not, this is 30% right here, this is 50%, and you can see all of them in that 30 to 50% range. But you're looking at that list, you say, wait a minute, these are all, kind of European, Western nations, or Eastern Europe, whatever. You say, what about the rest of the world? Well, let's keep working our way through the alphabet. Chile, where's that? South America. China in Asia, the Congo in Africa, Costa Rica and Inter-America. You can see here, no matter where you go on the planet, you go to the Middle East, to Egypt, 30 to 50% of the planet with high blood pressure. How about if you go to Ghana, West Africa, to Greece, Guatemala? You see the list, right? India, Israel, just like Ireland, all of them, 30 to 50% of their adult population with high blood pressure. It's true in Japan, just like it's true in Mongolia. It's true in Norway as well as in Russia. And yes, it's true here in the U.S. So the point is, global problem. If you look at the statistics, we're talking about somewhere around 1.4 billion people on the planet with high blood pressure. And like I mentioned earlier, roughly 50% of the population that you'll find at home on any given day is going to have high blood pressure. It's skewed a little bit to older people. They're at home during the day and not working. So 46%, this is also pretty sobering. 46% of people, do you see that statistic in red? 46% what? They don't even know that they have high blood pressure. What do we call high blood pressure? Do any of you know? That's right, the silent killer. You can feel absolutely fine. You say, Dr. DeRose, as soon as I get a headache, I'm going to go see the doctor because that's a sign of high blood pressure. Is it true? Can some people get headaches? Yes, but it's actually unusual. I see people not uncommonly. They'll come into our office. I do a day a week of telemedicine, so I'm actually not in the office, but they come to a physical office in a practice that I worked for many years in California. They'll come into that office, they'll check their pressure. I just saw someone this week. I think their pressure was like 200 over 100. Felt fine. So as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have high blood pressure today, it's likely waiting for you down the road. And this is, again, using older guidelines. What I want you to notice with this graphic, yes, it's true. This is U.S. data. Young people, teens, into their 20s, into their early 30s, only about 1 in what? 15, 16 with high blood pressure, 6%. But what happens once we get into our 60s? Our age is roughly the percentage of the people in that age cohort, that age group that have high blood pressure. Let me see if you understand what I'm trying to communicate. Let's say you're sitting here today and you're 65. What percentage of 65-year-olds in America have high blood pressure? That's exactly right. Let's say you're 78. What percentage of 78-year-olds have high blood pressure? You got it. How about if you're 103? If you're 103, what percentage of 103-year-olds have high blood pressure? Well, you know it can't be 103%, right? Like I told you earlier today, if you caught that quick comment I made, and by the way, this is true. This is worldwide data. It's basically the same as in the U.S. It's just looking at dozens of countries mapped, and it's basically the same as, again, your 60s, 70s, 60 to 70% of the population with high blood pressure. But here's where things max out. They max out around 90%. Yeah, some races a little bit more high blood pressure than others, but it's really pretty equivalent. About 90% likelihood, if you live a normal lifespan, you're going to have high blood pressure before you die. Unless you do something different than what most people do, and that's what we're going to focus on today, okay? Why are we talking about it? If you can feel perfectly fine and have high blood pressure, how dangerous is high blood pressure? It's very dangerous. What kind of things can high blood pressure do that can rob you of life or quality of life? That's right. It can cause a stroke, heart attack, a major risk factor for heart attack, major risk factor for kidney failure. Some of you may or may not know, for over 20 years, my wife is keeping track. She said, well, David, it's 25 years come next year. Yes, we've been doing a syndicated radio show for Native Americans called American Indian and Alaska Native Living. It's part of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's outreach to First Nation peoples. And so I work with a lot of Native Americans. I was speaking to a group of tribal health workers in Northern California some years ago talking about high blood pressure. And they said, it's amazing, Dr. DeRose, that you're talking about this. I just left a patient's home. This was a community health worker. And they said they were in shock. They were in disbelief. They couldn't believe what was going on. I said, what was going on? And they said they had just been to the nephrologist, the kidney specialist. And he said, you need to prepare to go on dialysis. And the person said, how can that be? I don't have diabetes. In their mind, the only people they knew in the tribe that had kidney problems were the diabetics. What do you think this guy's problem was? That's right, he had uncontrolled high blood pressure. And that high blood pressure was just gradually robbing him of kidney function until he's starting to swell up, having other problems, goes to see the doctor, and he's diagnosed with end-stage kidney disease. One of the scariest things that high blood pressure is related to, you can dodge the bullet, never have a heart attack, never have a stroke, never have kidney failure, never go blind. By the way, blindness, you're at increased risk if you have high blood pressure. But you are at greater risk of dementia. So if you're walking around, your blood pressure is not well controlled, you're putting yourself at higher risk of that as well. So it's a long list. Bottom line, you don't want to have high blood pressure. If you do, you want to get your numbers under control. So here's the first take-home point. If you haven't heard it already, so if you're interested in ministering to the health needs of your community, and you want to be able to minister effectively for as long as possible, what should you be concerned about? High blood pressure. That's why we gave you these cards earlier today. Now, I found what many of you found. The internet is not good right here if you've got AT&T, okay? So maybe, Verizon is the carrier to have. No, that's not going to help you either. Okay. So for whatever reason, it's surprising to me, right here in the heart of Elkhart. Well, maybe you're not in the heart of Elkhart. Oh, really? What do you call it? A Faraday cage? What does that mean in plain English?
That blocks cell signals.
Okay. And is that deliberately designed that way?
No, it's just the way the building's built.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'm glad somebody knows about Faraday cages. Now I can act like I understand what they are. Okay? But the point is, did you all get one of these cards? Okay, let's make sure that we get, can someone help me? Just make sure everyone's got at least one of these cards. Okay, I see help coming here. Thank you so much. Okay, just make sure everyone's got at least one. If you want to give them all out, if some people want to share a few, you can get an extra one. Okay? So the whole point of this, and I was talking with a couple of you who are interested in doing more with this, if you want to use this as a community-based ministry, we have some extra resources that we can help you with too. So I'm happy to work with you. You guys all know how to track me down, and Pastor Don has permission to give out my cell phone number. All of you seem like you've been, upstanding citizens. Will not likely call me at 3 in the morning. Okay? So here we go. Let's talk a little bit more. How important is it to control your blood pressure? We could show you all these different complications, how they decrease, but let's just take one example. This is looking at stroke risk, and it's showing you what happens. This just has the population stratified by age. They have that magic number of 60. And bottom line is whether you're less than 60 or whether you're greater than 60, you get those blood pressure numbers down, and you're going to cut your risk right away of a stroke by roughly 50%. By the way, do people die from strokes? Yes. And some people have said, Dr. DeRose, we got to die from something. Grandma died at 98 from a stroke. She was just in her sleep, and next thing we knew, she was dead. That really wasn't a bad way to go. There's a problem with strokes, though. That's right. A lot of people survive. A lot of people survive. Some years ago, I was in a clinic-based practice, and a patient came in for the first time. He was in a wheelchair, and I was trying to get a medical history. I could not understand him. And I'm usually pretty good with, picking up on, I could not understand him. Fortunately, he had come in with a family member. It was quite apparent that he was paralyzed on half his body, as well as having difficulty speaking. Would you like to guess what problem he had had? He had a stroke, exactly right. When I saw him, he was in his mid-60s. Would you like to guess how long he had been like that? Some 20 years, yeah, some 20 years. So the problem is these high blood pressure's complications just don't wait to the end of life. And we've seen it, far too often. So you want to be concerned about your blood pressure. You want to get it controlled. Now, you say, okay, what is a good blood pressure? Well, look at this, the way we've described it here. There's confusion about blood pressure guidelines. And so let's just take a look at this. This is really interesting. If you're not on high blood pressure medicines, an ideal blood pressure is different than if you're on medicine. Did you know that? So if you're not on medicine, what's an ideal blood pressure? Getting it down to at least 110 for the upper number. And we've had good data on this for many years. This is an older study here in the U.S., but it just illustrates how powerful this is. So I won't go into all the details of this slide. They took the U.S. population, divided into 10% slices, if you will. And so the people with the best blood pressures are right here. This is the first decile, and you can see their blood pressures are 111 or below, okay? So less than 112, 111 or below. So what I want you to do is compare this first bar here with the third bar, okay? The third bar, this is they're in the best third of blood pressures, but now their blood pressure is between 118 and 120 systolic. That's how it works. So everyone would say today, well, that's a normal blood pressure. But what this illustrates is you go from here to here, this is showing you a statistically significant increase of 30% in something. What is the something? Relative risk of heart disease death. You're increasing your likelihood of dying by 30% as your blood pressure goes from, say, 110 to 119. And this is a greater increase in risk than a lot of things that they'll put on the news. You know, this is increasing your risk of this or this 10% or this 20%. That's a 30% increased risk. So the point that I'm getting at is many of us are walking around, the doctor pats you on the back, 138 over 87, I'm not worried about that, that's fine. Why? Because your doctor just saw, 5 people who are running 160, 170, 180. But it's not fine, okay? You want to have a better blood pressure. So most of us, if our blood pressures are not already running quite low, we want to see them lower. And that's going to lower our risk of complications over time. Now here's where it gets confusing. Once you add medicines to the equation, things change. So let's just look at that, and we'll kind of walk you through. Last time we started by working from the left side of the graphic to the right. We're going to do it the opposite way right now. And I'm going to start way over here on the right side. Now this is showing you what happens when you control blood pressure with medication. Now we're going to find that, we'll talk about medications versus lifestyle therapies in a few minutes. But even if you control it with medicine, as you go from in the 160s down to the 140s, are you lowering your risk of problems? What are they looking at here? They're looking at risk of events over about 5 years, 4.5 years. Well, what kind of events are they? Dying from cardiovascular causes. It's like a heart attack or stroke that kills you. Or just having a heart attack, or just having a stroke, or being hospitalized for heart failure. So they took all of these bad things that can happen from blood pressure, they pooled them all together, and they said, let's just follow these people for 4 or 5 years, and if we just get their blood pressure down from the 160s down to the 140s, we're going to go down from about 1 in 4 of them having a serious event down to, starting to approach 15%. Getting to the lower 140s, it's even better. What do you notice keeps happening? It keeps lowering until you get to around 130. Then what do you notice? Then it actually increases. So what this is illustrating is that if you say, Dr. DeRose said ideal blood pressure is 110. That's not what I said. It's 110 if what? You're not on medicine. If you're on medicine, don't start taking extra. Say, listen, I'm going to start, before I see the doctor in 3 months, I'm going to start taking a little bit more and get my, no. As your blood pressure goes down, your risk of events can actually go up. And there's one of the reasons for it is all medications have side effects, okay? So, where does this bring us? It brings us to one important conclusion. The ideal way to get your blood pressure down is what? Yeah, with natural things, okay? So why aren't people doing well with controlling their blood pressure? By the way, the data is really bad. Look at this here. We already saw this. This is worldwide data now. Less than half of adults with high blood pressure are diagnosed and treated. Okay? And actually, some of the other, just look at this bottom bullet point. Scaling up access to simple, affordable, and effective treatment for just 50% of affected individuals could prevent how many deaths? This is worldwide, 76 million deaths, and save $100 billion in healthcare costs. I mean, it's just really staggering when you think about the burden of suffering from high blood pressure. So let's hasten on and ask the question, why aren't people controlling their blood pressure? How about here in the U.S., where people, they may have great health insurance? I'll tell you a true story. Some years ago, a woman came into my practice. At this time, I was working in a health center where we were known for our natural therapies. This woman was living in our community, and she walked into my office because she wanted to get on a natural program for her health problem. It turned out that 8 months before she saw me, she had walked into her doctor's office. While she was there, the doctor took something out of his drawer. It looked like a piece of material. It had some Velcro on it. There was like a tube attached to it. He wrapped it around her arm. Any of you following along with what he did? Yeah, he checked her blood pressure. She wasn't there for her blood pressure. And the doctor said, "You have high blood pressure." That woman walked out of the doctor's office with what in her hands? Would you like to guess? That's right, a prescription. And she filled that prescription. By the way, whatever reason she was in there for the doctor, I think it was just some routine thing. She felt fine when she walked in to see the doctor. But how do you think she felt after she took that blood pressure medicine for just a little while? Yeah, she was having side effects. So she called the doctor up. What do you think the doctor did? That's right, put her on a different medicine. By the time I saw her 8 months later, she'd been on 6 different medications. Every one of them causing side effects. This is not uncommon, okay? In fact, I'll show you something. These are some common symptoms of high blood pressure medications. And we're going to compare it to some of the symptoms of untreated high blood pressure. Let's just do that together. Common symptoms. You want to help me out with any? What are some common symptoms of blood pressure medicines? Common medicines. Cough. That's exactly right. Any others? Dizziness. Boy, you guys are on a roll here. You didn't have this one, though. Frequent urination. How many of you could live with that if you had to go to the bathroom more often? Well, you wouldn't sign up for it, right? But in the grand scheme of things, could you handle this? Is it better than a stroke or a heart attack or blindness or kidney failure? What do you think? Yeah, dumb questions. Fatigue. You already told me about dizziness, uncontrollable cough. These are all common symptoms of common blood pressure medicines. Exercise limitations, sexual dysfunction, and depression. It doesn't sound like a good list, does it? Well, you say, Dr. DeRose, you're not being fair. A lot of people will put up with symptoms if they're less than the symptoms of the untreated condition. What are some of the common symptoms of untreated high blood pressure? That's right. They're none. Common. Okay, yeah, you may get a headache, you're right, but most people have no symptoms. So, like this patient that I saw, she went from no symptoms to what? I didn't go through the whole list. She might have had all these complications. Once she'd been on 6 different medicines, one was making her tired, another making her feel depressed, another causing a cough. Do you see how it works? So were you surprised that she wanted to get off her medicine? No. Here's what people do. This is data on how long people stay on their medicine for blood pressure. Okay? You might not be able to read the fine print. So this first bar is for what we call beta blockers. Beta blockers are drugs whose generic name ends in LOL, L-O-L. So maybe you've heard of atenolol, or propanolol, or metoprolol, or carvedilol. Have you heard of some of those names? Okay. Now, these drugs can be very helpful. People have heart failure, they might be on these drugs. They might be on for heart rhythm problems. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if you just have high blood pressure. If you're put on a beta blocker for just high blood pressure, the odds are only about 28%. That means only about 1 in 4 people will stick with that for a year. Why? Because the complications, okay? one of the things it does is slows down your heart rate. Now, if you have a fast heart rate, that can be good, okay? But if you don't, it can make you feel more weak, can affect your ability to exercise. You following along? You see how this works? Even the best tolerated medicines, you see them on the right side of the graph there. Still, only about 2/3 of people a year later are still on the drug. So the whole point is many people, like that patient, are frustrated. Now, good news about the patient I was telling you about is by God's grace, we shared with her lifestyle principles. She put them into practice, and her blood pressure was normal. I was on a TV show that was interviewing me. They got a lot of visibility, so there's over a million hits on the YouTube thing that they put out, that segment talking about this woman controlling her blood pressure. And the host asked me, I mean, I probably hadn't seen the woman in 5 or 10 years. He said, well, is her blood pressure still controlled? And I said, well, as far as I know. But I'm thinking, boy, all these people are watching this. I better find out. So I actually tracked her down. I remembered her name and got a hold of her. She said, oh, yes, my blood pressure's still good. I'm not on any medicine. The point is, it's a whole lot better than being on medications that are causing side effects, right? Here's the bottom line, though. And I'll tell you another story. This is not a patient of mine, but someone we knew socially. So this woman, her blood pressure is, well, she tells me. She says, Dr. DeRose, my blood pressure is running, in the 180s, systolic. I say, 180s? I mean, this is not good. I mean, have you seen a doctor? Yeah, he gave me medicine, but I don't want to take the pills. And I said, well, you need to control that blood pressure. This is dangerous. You could have a stroke. She said, no, but I know naturally I can control it perfectly. I can get my blood pressure down to 130/80. I say, how do you know that? Because I've done it. I say, well, what do you have to do? She said, well, I got to do this exercise, and can't be working so much. I got to be resting, and I got to do X, Y. I said, well, how often do you do that? Well, maybe a couple days a month. Okay. I said, no, this is if you have to in the short term, start on the medicine, and then as you can improve things, then you can get off the medicine. Well, she didn't want to take my advice. And unfortunately, it was not all that long after she had a major stroke that she never recovered from. So my point, yes, I'm all for natural therapies, but it's so important to control your blood pressure first, okay? Sometimes the natural therapies take time. How many of you are aware that being overweight raises your blood pressure? Yes. I used to run a hospital-based weight loss program. Would any of you like to guess the heaviest patient I remember treating that I'm sure I was involved with their care? Yeah, over 600 pounds. I think I had an 800-pounder once, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know. So let me just tell you, you're all thin, okay? I don't care what anyone tells you, you're all thin. No, none of you guys come close, okay? Now, yes, I just want, yeah. You can have that published, in the bulletin next time. Dr. DeRose says everyone in the Elkhart Church is thin. But let me just explain something. If a person weighs 6, and the person, by the way, wasn't 12 feet tall, okay? So they were carrying a lot of extra weight. Do you think they could lose all that weight in a month? No. How about 2 months? No. My point is, so even if they're losing 10 pounds a month, that's a lot, okay? But they're going to be their blood pressure is going to be coming down over months or years. They may need a medication today, but as they lose the weight and improve the lifestyle, they may be able to get off that down the road. But don't say, well, I know once I get down to 200 pounds, my blood pressure will be great. Well, all the time when you're walking around with the 180s and the 190s and the 200s, that's cumulative damage on your blood vessels and your organs. Sometimes I would go down to the front of an audience and I'd find some little child, in the audience and say, come and hit me as hard as you can on my shoulder. And I stopped doing that after this sweet little girl, looked like she was about 5 years old. She must have had some big brothers or something, I don't know. But And I tried not to grimace or scream or anything. And I said, that really didn't hurt me too much. It was true, it didn't hurt me too much. But the point is, what happens even if it was just a little child just tapping you in the arm, if they kept doing that time and time again, what would happen? It would damage. And that's what that's what blood pressure is. Your blood pressure is pounding your organs, pounding your tissues, and it causes cumulative damage. Okay, so I've already told you that a lot of people are getting stressed out by their blood pressure medicines. I didn't use that terminology. And you can see here, the common solution for high blood pressure, medications may create more pressure or stress than the high blood pressure itself. Okay? You aren't all that stressed about your high blood pressure, but you're stressed out about that medication. So, question is, might there be a better way? Might there be a no-pressure solution to high blood pressure? Now, how many of you think when I talk about a no-pressure solution, I'm saying an ideal pressure would be 0/0? How many think that would be the goal? Some of you are smiling. You know what 0/0 is, right? You're dead, exactly. That's not what we want. Why do I call it a no-pressure solution? Yeah, I don't want to stress you out, okay? It's not going to get you all, you're not going to feel like, oh no, this is terrible. How can I do this? How many of you can remember the phrase no pressure? Can you remember that phrase, no pressure? Just 2 words. So if you can remember that, do you know how many letters are in no pressure? There's 10. 10 natural strategies to control your high blood pressure. Here's the list, okay? N is for what? Nutrition. O is for optimal choice of beverages. P is for what? Physical exercise. How many of you, don't raise your hand, do not like the word exercise? Okay? I said, don't raise your hand. You're going to raise it anyway. If you don't like the word exercise, make it activity, physical activity. Rest, yes. This is why I like speaking in churches. Okay? We give you permission, during my lectures at least, you can rest. If you're sleeping during the lecture, I know you're benefiting. I know you're one of my sharper students, already applying the principles that we're talking about, right? Okay. E is for what? Environment. Let me just, a lot of people say environment. Do you realize that if your house is on a busy road, by actual measurement, your blood pressure will be higher than if you were on a quieter street? You say, well, Dr. DeRose, I'm stuck. I got a reverse mortgage. What can I do? They've actually shown this. If you move your bedroom from the side of the house where the road is to the opposite side, your blood pressure will actually come down. Isn't that amazing? You say, but Dr. DeRose, I'm in a one-room apartment on the busiest street in Elkhart. What can you do then? Wear earplugs, exactly. Actually, ambient noise raises blood pressure. Stress management will help lower it. Social support. One of my favorite topics in a church is to talk about social support. Do you know, I often go to major preventive medicine, public health conferences, and one of the things that they often are talking about is connectedness and social support. It's powerful. So you may not think of it this way, but even if you never run a health program in your church is an island for healing because you offer community, okay? You offer social connectedness. So one of the most important things you can be doing as church members is being kind when people come through your doors, okay? And you've all been very kind to me, so I appreciate that, okay? And you took very good care of me here. You made sure I got plenty to eat. Some of you even came to my table and made sure I had some extra food. You were worried that I would get hypoglycemic during my lecture, so thank you for that, okay? I think I'm doing just fine right now. So, okay, social support, very important. And actually research showing people that have more social connections have better blood pressure. than people that are more isolated. Use of natural adjuncts. By the way, each of these is a chapter in our book, 30 Days to Natural Blood Pressure Control. So we have an entire chapter on use of natural adjuncts. What is that all about? Supplements. Those are supplements and other natural substances that can lower your blood pressure. So we talk about everything from coenzyme Q10 to L-arginine to hibiscus tea. So a whole host of things that can naturally lower your blood pressure. Then we have this weird one, refraining from pressors and excesses. Some people say, wow, you were really strapped to come up with something for the letter R. Some people have used the term temperance for this one. Have you ever heard that concept? What is the concept of temperance? That's right. Listen to the doctor in the second row. She says it's total avoidance of things that are harmful and use of moderation of things that are good. See, some people say, oh, moderation in all things. That's not temperance. Okay, I have plenty of patients over the years that have said they're being moderate with their use of methamphetamine or moderate with their smoking or no. How much meth should you have? 0. How much tobacco should you use? 0. Okay. Anyway, well, since I mentioned tobacco, do you have any idea? Let's say you just said, hey, and I've had patients have told me this, not too many, but they say, I really only like that first cigarette of the day. I'm just smoking 1 cigarette a day. Any idea how much a single cigarette raises your blood pressure? Just 1. 25 points. Now, the second one doesn't raise it another 25, you understand, okay? But just having a single cigarette will raise your blood pressure 25 points. How long does it stay up? Yeah. I want to say it's an hour or 2. I actually have a graphic in the book, and I might have thrown it in this slide set. But it comes down fairly quickly. But I think it's significantly elevated for about 2 hours. We'll check my memory if we can actually show you the slide. Or I could pull up the book on my... We'll give you more time for questions and answers before we finish. But what about exercising faith in... while we're on those pressors, let me mention one that might be a surprise. If you leave off tobacco and nicotine, major blood pressure raising effects. If you leave off caffeine significantly raises blood pressure. You leave those 2 off. There's another very common class of compounds that Americans consume that significantly raise blood pressure. Do any of you know what it is? Chocolate? Yeah, there's some things in... What? Oh, Mountain Dew. Oh, yeah, caffeine, and chocolate has a caffeine relative called theobromine. Yes, all those things are right. They will all raise blood pressure, but I'm looking for a different answer. What is it? Sodium. That will raise blood pressure. Everyone's eating sodium because you have to eat some sodium or you'll die. Alcohol will raise blood pressure. Sometimes teachers will ask questions where there's not a right or a wrong answer. You're supposed to read their mind. And you guys are doing very poor in this department right now. The answer I was looking for was non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. That's right on the tip of all of your tongues. The NSAIDs. You say, well, what are those? Well, let me describe it this way. If you're taking a medication for pain, and it's not Tylenol, and it's not a narcotic, it's probably an NSAID. It might have the name ibuprofen, or Aleve, or Nuprin, or naproxen. Are you following along with me? So these common drugs, do you know how much they can raise your blood pressure? 15 points in susceptible individuals. 15 points. Now, let me contrast that with this. What is an average dose of an average high blood pressure medication? How much does that lower your blood pressure? Any idea? A standard dose of a single medicine, how much will it lower your blood pressure? About 8 points. 8 points. So you're connecting the dots? You're taking the Aleve because you have joint problems, and you're on 2 blood pressure medicines. You realize that if you just stop the Aleve, you may be able to get off those 2 blood pressure medicines. Okay? I mean, if you're one of those people that's really susceptible to it. So you say, but I got to do something for my pain. Well, that's why in the book, and we can talk more about it with you, we recommend using more non-drug things for pain as well. Okay. So what happens when people put these principles into practice? So after we came out with the book, we also had video materials that we developed, and this is from the first 3 community groups. They all happen to be Seventh-day Adventist churches, 2 in the U.S., 1 in Canada. What happened to people's blood pressures when they followed these principles for 30 days? We let them spread it out over 2 months. We had 8 modules, so they could do the program 8 sessions in 30 days, meeting twice a week, or they could spread it out 1 session a week for 8 weeks. And you can see here, on average, how much did people lower their upper number of blood pressure? Yeah, over 17 points, from 157.5 down to 140.4. You can see the lower numbers dropped about 8 points. So the principles work. I mean, we knew that from the research literature, but actually the way we package it in the book and the videos, that helped. We took many of those principles and I put them into this program, okay? So let me just ask you this question. You don't see the book. I didn't bring one with me. It's a long book. We have that book available on audiobook. So have you heard of Audible? That's Amazon's audiobook service. So I'm the one reading through that book. Would you like to guess how long, if you were to listen to it at normal speed from cover to cover, how long it would take you? Take you over 12 hours. Okay? So how much time would 30 6-minute videos take? It's 3 hours. So obviously everything in the book is not in the videos, but we took many of the high points, we put them into this program, okay? So we expanded it to talk about diabetes and other things as well. But that's an actual screenshot from the videos. Okay, that's the program. I think all of you have gotten it. Hopefully you'll sign up. By the way, we found something very interesting. We've had some tremendous success stories, people that have gone through this free program. I'll tell you this true story. So this woman came into a Seventh-day Adventist church. She was not a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not sure why she was there, but she ended up talking with the pastor's wife about her blood pressure. The pastor's wife had heard about this program. She didn't have an actual card, but she directed this person to the website, and the person actually went through the program. And I think, as I recall, her blood pressures were running like above 180, and by the end of 30 days, they're down like 110 or 120. Now, not everyone does that well, but my point is, I mean, this is a ministry. You just share someone with this and can help them dramatically. Okay, let's talk about a few of these things in detail, then we'll take your questions. I'll probably take about 15 minutes. We'll go through some more high points in these different elements, and then we'll hear from you what you think is most important, what you'd like to know, and then we'll wind up. So let's just talk about nutrition, first of all. And some of you, in fact, all of you, if you've been listening, either I've said this or one of you have said the 3 key nutrition principles we talk about. First one is increasing plant food consumption. Second one is losing weight if you're overweight. And the third one is decreasing salt intake. All of these things can help to significantly lower your blood pressure. So let's look at this first one, first of all. And the question is, does it really make a difference what your typical diet practices are like? I see some of you nodding your heads. I was in a grocery store, at least I'm pretty sure that's where it was. It was some social setting, where you're not expecting people to talk with you about medical topics, and I'm walking along, Dr. DeRose, Dr. DeRose. Some guy was coming up to me. I went to your lecture, it changed my whole life. Now some of you are saying, oh wow, well that must have really made you feel proud, the powerful lecturer, motivational speaker. How many of you think that was what went through my head? Well, it's actually not, because the next words out of his mouth were these. but it had absolutely nothing to do with anything that you said. And I'm going like, I mean, what kind of a crazy man is this, right? My lecture turned his life around and it was nothing to do with what I said. But then he kept talking. He said, it was that one graphic that you showed, that one picture. Would you like to see that picture? It's in chapter 5 of the book. You can get it on Amazon. Okay? No, I'm going to show you the picture. Don't worry. It is true. It's on Amazon, and it is in chapter 5, but I'll show it to you here. Here it is. He said this was this life-changing graphic that I put up. This is from something known as the Adventist Health Study. Have any of you heard of Seventh-day Adventists? If you haven't, you're in a Seventh-day Adventist church. There's a large study that's going on, still continuing. In this particular arm of the study, nearly 90,000 people. And they noticed something very interesting. As you go from the standard American diet, that's in blue, okay, and you go to the right, that means eating less and less animal products, your likelihood of having both diabetes and high blood pressure decreases. So you see, go from blue to red. The red are the semi-vegetarians. What are they eating? Well, here's how I illustrate it. If I am talking with someone and maybe they're asking me a medical question, I say, tell me about your diet. And they say, Dr. DeRose, I'm essentially a vegetarian. If they say that to me, they're likely a semi-vegetarian. That means they're eating meat, red meat, poultry, and fish less than once a week. Does it make any difference to be in that red category instead of the blue? Does it make any difference? Yeah, dramatically less likelihood of diabetes and high blood pressure. Let's say they say they've gotten rid of all the red meat and all the poultry, but they're still eating fish as well as dairy, eggs, and other things like that. Now they're what we call a pesco-vegetarian, and they're cutting their risk of diabetes, roughly half, approaching similar for the high blood pressure. Get rid of the fish, and we call them a lacto-ovo-vegetarian. They're in purple here. You can see they're down, about 1/3 the likelihood of diabetes and maybe 40% the likelihood of having high blood pressure. But who had the lowest risk? Yeah, vegans are total vegetarians, however you want to describe it. You say, well, that's because they're just eating paper, right, Dr. DeRose? No, they're eating. Usually the vegans are eating an abundance of fruits and grains and vegetables and nuts and seeds, okay? Beans. So often their diet is more varied than the non-vegetarians. By the way, you had a lot of excellent plant food-based options at lunch. I really enjoyed that. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for making sure you didn't bring any of those Guamanian pigs onto the menu here. Okay? But why did this change this guy's life? He said, I've got to move to the right of that graph. I don't want diabetes. I don't want high blood pressure. Now, some of you might be health professionals. You might know more details about this study. This is what we call cross-sectional data. It means you look at a population at one point in time. And the question might be, well, I have high blood pressure right now. Would it make any difference to move in that direction? Well, they've studied that as well. This is a review of some 80 scientific studies, and listen to how the authors summarize their findings. Randomized clinical trials. This is the kind of gold standard in research. They've shown that blood pressure is lowered when animal products are replaced with vegetable products in both normotensive. That means people, if your doctor says your blood pressure is normal, but you realize, well, it could be better, well, even then, eat more plant products instead of animal products, and what's going to happen? Your blood pressure is going to go down. Now, do you have to be a total vegetarian to get the benefit? No. Okay? The more you go in that direction, though, the better your blood pressure is going to tend to be. And the question becomes, well, why? Why would eating more plant products lower your blood pressure? Why are plant foods so powerful? Well, there's a number of compounds in plant products that are natural blood pressure lowering. Magnesium, potassium, calcium. You hear the word calcium, what do you think? What food? Yeah, I grew up being told, dairy is the best food for calcium. Do you know the top 10 sources of calcium in the U.S. diet? They're all plant products. not a single dairy product. We put this data in our book. These are just tables that we took from the USDA database. Magnesium champions, everything on this list, they're all plant products. You probably can't read the fine print, but you'll see soybeans there, you'll see nuts, you'll see other seeds, beans, rice bran is on that list, okay? So, magnesium champions. Potassium champions, all plant foods. You can see beet greens and cabbage and parsley and squash, okay? All plant products. Calcium now, we're looking at calcium per calorie, because remember, gaining weight is not beneficial to your blood pressure. Now, I mean, if you're emaciated, sure, we want you to have a normal weight, but in general, most Americans are too heavy. So we want to see how much nutrition we can get for as few calories. So you want to look at calcium per calorie. If you do that, all the top 10 sources are plant products. You can see tofu on there, you can see mustard greens, cabbage. But some of you, if you're reading the fine print, you can say, Dr. DeRose, I see American cheese on there and Swiss cheese. There is a fair amount of calcium in dairy products, but they also tend to be high in sodium and high in fat. The dairy products are really not your friends if you're trying to have the best health. Does it mean you can't eat dairy? No, it doesn't mean you can't have it. But my point is, if you're trying to make better choices, you're going to eat less of that. Are you following along with me? Okay. Now, here's what really amazed me. When we were doing the research for the book, this is what shocked me. Those other things I could have expected, but it's the science of phytochemistry that totally blew me away. Phytochemicals, what are they? Do any of you know what the term means? Yeah, it literally means plant chemicals. These are compounds in plants. And when we use that term in research, we're usually saying compounds in plants that are not vitamins or minerals. So there's other constituents in plants that have broad health-giving effects. So I have another book out called The Methuselah Factor. In The Methuselah Factor, we talk about these phytochemicals, and there's this whole list of them that have all kinds of health benefits, lowering your risk of cancer, making your blood more fluid, lowering your risk of actually improving your mental clarity, improving your physical performance. There's these compounds helping your joints to heal. There's all these different phytochemicals. But the most interesting phytochemicals for blood pressure are ones that tie in with something that you probably were thinking about, maybe even talking about at lunch. Fess up. How many of you were talking about the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system as you were eating lunch today? Yeah, probably not too many of you. Why do I put up such a slide? So you see, you obviously put up this slide to prove that you had never taken a class in public speaking. Well, it is true that you go to a speaking coach and they'll tell you never put up a slide that has this much information. It's not comprehensible. But that's exactly why I put it there. I'm trying to illustrate that this complex hormonal system is tied into all these organs that you see illustrated there. You see an image of the lungs and the kidneys and the liver, and you see blood vessels, and you see the pituitary gland, and you see the adrenal gland, okay? You following along? All of these organs and tissues are involved in your blood pressure control, and they're linked together by enzymes, by chemicals. One of the enzymes that's very active in this whole system is something called the angiotensin converting enzyme. If you block this enzyme, it will lower your blood pressure. So there's a whole class of drugs. They're called angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. You may have heard them called ACE inhibitors. Have you ever heard of ACE inhibitor? Okay. If you've not heard of them, if you have a blood pressure medicine, if the generic name ends in pril, it's an ACE inhibitor. So maybe you're taking ramipril, or maybe you're taking lisinopril. Are you following along? Those are ACE inhibitors. Now, here's what's remarkable. Well, let me illustrate it this way. Let's say you have a family member or a friend who has dementia, and they're on lisinopril. Let's say 25 milligrams a day of lisinopril, first thing in the morning. And this person gets up in the morning, and they first thing out of bed, they take their lisinopril. And about an hour later, they say, did I take my blood pressure pill? They don't have one of those, pill. They've just got the bottle, and they just got it refilled, and they look, Yeah, it doesn't look like I've had any. So they take another one. About an hour later, it's breakfast time, and they're saying, oh my, did I take my lisinopril? What could happen to this person? That's right, they could get dangerously low blood pressure. They could pass out because they took too much what? ACE inhibitor. Now keep that story in mind, and let me show you something remarkable. Because the Creator has put ACE inhibitors into plant foods. Look at this list. Broccoli, soybeans, mushrooms, spinach, potatoes, rice. Are you looking at this list? Some of you will be surprised to learn that today you folks gave me some blood pressure lowering foods in the fellowship meal. I enjoyed many. I enjoyed wheat and potatoes, corn. I think there's some garlic in there. I saw chickpeas, and wow, you guys like spinach. I had mushrooms. You guys like covered all the bases. I don't know that I saw any mung beans or buckwheat. Do you see where I'm going with this? Now, remember, I told you about that confused woman who took too much lisinopril. Now, what would have happened if down there you saw what I saw, and one of you very considerately brought that delicious broccoli out after many people had been served, okay? And let's say you just had 5 servings of the broccoli. How many of you think there's a danger if you had a 6th serving, you could end up in the emergency room with low blood pressure? What do you think? No. Isn't this amazing? So God puts these things in the foods, and you can eat all these natural ACE inhibitors, and I've never seen a patient that ended up with, passing out from eating too much broccoli and buckwheat. No. So I just find it remarkable. So God has put all these powerhouses in our food that you can benefit from. And by the way, you guys did a really good job making it taste good as well. Okay. We could spend a lot more time about weight control, but I'll tell you something. If you go to the website, how many of you caught the website that this directs you to? Any of you memorize it? The name of it? What is it? It's Timeless Healing Insights. So if you lose the card and you didn't have good internet here because you were in you remember what they call this here? What kind of a cage? What kind of cage? Faraday, is that the right term? A Faraday cage. So it's a fair day outside, but that's not what we're talking about. It's a Faraday cage. If you couldn't sign up and you lose the card, how many of you have an amazing talent like I have and you can get a business card and it can just vanish? Most of you don't have that talent like I do. TimelessHealingInsights.org. Now, if you use this, it'll take you right to the blood pressure program. But if you go to the main website, TimelessHealingInsights.org, you can scroll down past this program. We have a program called Fast 8. It's a weight loss program, absolutely free. And you can download a 60-plus page syllabus. We're hoping to make that into a book. We've been working on it, but that's a ways out yet. So you can get it free right now, or you could wait till it's a book, and then you can buy it. My wife's a business manager. She'd be happier that way. Right, Sonia? Sonia, am I telling things out of class on you, Sonia? Am I saying something inappropriate? That you would prefer people wait until we have a blood pressure book out and buy it than getting the free syllabus? She said, of course, I'm the business manager. What do you expect? Okay. But you go there, you can download the program. It's not downloadable, but the syllabus is downloadable. But the program, they're videos. It's not automated like the 30-day program. So we'll leave that for you. And I'm going to hasten over so we can take your questions in the last portion here. So I'm just going to put up... this is the program, Fast 8. So the actual website is timelesshealinginsights.org/fast8, if you want to go directly to it. Okay, so we want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions. So here's the list. There might be some specific things you want to talk with me about. You could ask me other questions too. If the question is really difficult, then fortunately my wife is here and we'll give her the mic up front. Okay? Okay. So who's got a question for me this afternoon? Okay?
Hold it.
Yeah, make sure you hold your question until you get the mic.
What do you do when your blood pressure ranges from 90 over 50 to 130 over 100?
Okay, well, first thing is blood pressure is supposed to change. It's supposed to fluctuate. Your blood pressure is supposed to go up with activity. It's supposed to go up with stress. That's to sustain you to be able to do things. What do we call the stress reaction?
High blood pressure.
Yeah, stress will raise your blood pressure, but the answer I was looking for is the fight or flight response. If you're going to fight or flee, you have to raise your pressure.
Okay.
I used to do a lot of stress tests. I get the patients on the treadmill and I monitor them. If their blood pressure didn't go up, that means they have a heart problem.
I'm talking about you get up in the morning and your blood pressure is maybe 90 over 50, and the next morning it's 148 over 100 or whatever.
Okay. So are you on blood pressure medicine?
My husband is.
Okay, okay. So if a person is on medicine, and they're having fluctuating blood pressures, sometimes it has to do with the type of medicine they're using and the schedule of the medications. So sometimes what we'll do, a lot of these drugs, they say, oh, this works for 24 hours. It really doesn't work for 24 hours. Okay? You get more of the effect earlier after taking it. So sometimes we'll say, if you have to be on that medicine for a while yet, we'll cut it in half. You take half in the morning, half at night. Sometimes that helps to level out the levels so that there's not the peaks and the troughs.
The medicine is taken before he goes to bed at night.
Okay.
And one morning it's really low, maybe 2 or 3 mornings in a row, and then it'll go way up for 2 or 3 days, and then it drops again. Now, he was just at the doctor's office, and they told him to stop it he takes lisinopril, very, very low. He takes 10 milligrams, I think it is. They just told him to stop it unless his blood pressure got up to 130 or something on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a normal thing?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of things that can affect blood pressure. Your fluid status will affect your blood pressure. Whether you're cold or warm. When you're cold, your blood vessels are going to be more constricted and it'll raise your blood pressure. If you're hotter, your blood vessel will be more dilated. Your blood pressure will be lower. Depending on what you ate the night before, it can affect how well the medication is absorbed if you're taking the pill at night. So there's a lot of different variables. And yeah, if the blood pressure is never getting much up over, 135, 140, I'm not concerned about that, especially if it's giving a lot of lower numbers too. We definitely don't want someone to be passing out. That's not good. Okay? So bottom line is, in any given case, there can be a lot of different variables. So just try to be as consistent with your lifestyle as you can. Typically, I will tell you this, most people are dehydrated when they wake up in the morning. Why is that? Well, because, we've all been told, you shouldn't drink anything. You have to get up and go to the bathroom. But if you have to get up and go to the bathroom at night and you can go right back to sleep, it's actually not a bad thing. The highest risk time for heart attacks is early in the morning. And it's because you're not drinking any water, you haven't been moving around. So your blood is more stagnant. So for some people, they're better off to drink a little bit more fluid, maybe even take a drink when they wake up at night. They might get up a few more times. But if it doesn't interfere with your sleep, because you'll wake up in a lighter stage of sleep, you can get back to bed. I'm actually happier usually. Someone's doing that, they say, oh, Dr. DeRose, I'm just great. I just crash out for 10 hours a night. Well, their blood is very stagnant at the end of 10 hours, and they're probably quite dehydrated. What about other questions? Okay, I see a couple of hands up toward the front, at least one.
Hold the mic close.
All right, so if you're a really sound sleeper, which I can't even remotely relate to, would you recommend somebody setting an alarm for 5 hours to wake up to drink water?
No, I would not recommend that.
So, I mean, if you're really dehydrated, should you have water at the side of their bed so they start drinking right away? Because, I wake up, 2 or 3 times a night, and every time I go to the bathroom, I drink a glass of water because, I just dehydrate really bad. But not everybody does that. But what is the recommendation for somebody who sleeps and doesn't? What is the best thing
you really
to do?
can't sleep for 10 hours if you're adequately hydrated. Really, you'll have to get up and use the restroom. So what you're getting up because you drink water, later in the day. And the reason I don't like alarms is they can wake you up at a time that's not a good time in your sleep cycle to wake up. Okay, if you wake up naturally, when you need to use the facilities, you're usually in a lighter stage of sleep. You'll wake up, use the facilities, yes, and then go back to bed. Okay? Other questions? Okay.
Can I have the mic back? You allow me to ask you a question, sir?
Sure, go for it.
Tomorrow's my anniversary, and I had a big meal planned for the wife. You just saved me a lot of money.
Okay.
The neighbor has a garden. It has carrots and peas in it. I know what her anniversary meal is going to be.
Okay.
Since she's not here, let me ask you this. She doesn't like the fact that she's eating these vegetables when she knows they're putting the waste from the chickens on it, the waste from other animals on it. So to shorten this down, how much of the chemicals from the fertilizer, natural fertilizer, is actually getting into the green and leafy things, and should we even be concerned?
Okay. Well, let's even go a step further and talk about the artificial chemicals. You're talking about organic, farming. So they looked at this. The biggest concern that people have with toxins, if you look at disease, single probably biggest concern is cancer. And some years ago they looked at this. They looked at something like several hundred studies. I looked at the review. And the question was, when you look at conventionally grown fruits and vegetables, what's going to happen the more you eat of them? Okay? Because, there are, chemical fertilizers, there's toxins and present in our environment. If you are eating something grown by a major road, even though we don't have leaded gas today, there was, 20, 30, whatever years ago it was, and there's more lead in the soil by major roads, and some of that gets into the vegetables. So they looked at all this. And basically every study, the more fruits and vegetables you eat, even if they're conventionally grown, the lower your cancer risk. Okay? So does that mean you should say, well, hey, just bring on the fruit. I don't care where they've grown. I heard they were grown in this toxic, landfill over here. No, it doesn't mean that. Sure, if you grow your own vegetables organically, is that better? Yeah. But the bottom line is you shouldn't avoid those fruits and vegetables, plant products, the grains, because of toxins that are being used. Now, let me take it a step further. You say, well, that's why I only eat hamburger, because I know they're not spraying the cattle with stuff. Okay? But what do you think the cattle are eating? Okay? And remember what I shared with you earlier today. I didn't spend much time with it, but we call it biomagnification. As you go up the food chain, toxins are concentrated. So you say, Dr. DeRose, I'm not going to eat any of those fruits and vegetables. I'm just going to go out and go fishing. right over here on the St. Joe River. I go to this place where there's no no factories or anything, just the pristine waters of the St. Joe. That's where I get all my protein from. They actually did an interesting study. It wasn't of the St. Joe. It was one of the rivers out in Pennsylvania. And this researcher said he noticed something. I know there's like 3 rivers that go through Pittsburgh, but he's in the Pittsburgh area. And he said he noticed there'd be no fishermen where you see all this dirty water coming in from the city into the river. He said they'd go up, far up into the, headwaters of these rivers. And he said, well, let's analyze the toxin concentrations in the fish from right around Pittsburgh and then go way upstream and check there. You know what they found?
Same thing.
Actually, they found some of the fish upstream had higher toxin levels than the ones by the city. And you say, well, how could that be? Well, first of all, fish don't just stay in one place. Okay, that's the first thing. But the second thing is a lot of the toxins are getting into the water from like acid rain and other things. And even though the water may look clear, there may be toxins in the water. So the point was, fish in general concentrate toxins. If you want to you eat lower down on the food chain. That means you eat more grains and fruits and vegetables, okay? If you can afford it and you have access to good quality organic food, sure, that's better, okay? But if you can't afford that, you're still better off with the plant products than the animal products, okay? Other questions this afternoon?
Hold on. Let's get you.
You don't see a problem with the organic fertilizer like he was talking about, which would be, the manure from chickens, horses, cows, goats.
I won't say that I wouldn't prefer, some people call it, veganic farming, and they use worm castings and other things. But let's just put it this way. We live in a real world, and the best foods are your plant sources of nutrition, regardless of how have those animals been exposed to might there be stuff in their stools? Are there germs and stuff that can be in there? Yes. That's why you wash your fruits and vegetables. Okay? That is a serious concern. We have outbreaks of diseases that are linked to plant products, not because the plants have the disease, but because they're contaminated with animal waste. Okay? That is a significant risk factor in food outbreaks. So whether it's organic processes or there's cross-contamination, that is a concern. It's not innocuous. Mm-hmm.
Yes, just as you said, I'm learning now, you do what you can. Whether
Right.
it's regenerative farming, organic, then non-organic, GMO, non-GMO. However, we are all in a toxic soup, even if it's organic, even regenerative. So it's for us now, even as Seventh-day Adventists, to realize that we need to take time off to kind of detox or work a detoxing kind of system in your repertoire, your intake repertoire. You cannot remove yourself from everything. So there are times when you back off a week of just detoxing. Drink, hydration, green juices or whatever, go back on your system again. We're in it. So just learn to do a cleaning, simple cleaning for a while, 3 days or so, a week, and then you go back again, and you retreat, and you go back, and you retreat. That's the way we have to consider living now. After a while, you have to back off, cleanse a little, just like what we can do fasting for the spiritual, we do it for the body also.
It's interesting you mentioned that. So in the book, we do talk about fasting, and fasting is quite interesting. Fasting actually has a metabolic resetting function. It's true for blood pressure, it's true for diabetes, and when I've worked in lifestyle centers, we would often have people fast for several days. When we're monitoring them, we've done blood work and things, we'll often have them just do a water-only fast. That can be dangerous if you're taking medications, especially for blood sugar or blood pressure, and you're not being monitored. So I don't recommend that people just go on water-only fasts if they're on medications and have health issues. But the safest fast that we have used We call it the leaf, stem, and flower fast. Yeah. Yeah, so leaf, stem, and flower fast, it's a great cleansing regimen, whatever terminology you want to use. And this means you can use any leaf, stem, and flower vegetable, okay? You can eat it raw, you can juice it, you can steam it, and we'll sometimes have people do several days of those kind of fasts. It'll help lower the blood pressure, lower the blood sugar, and so fasting is an important part of the equation that we use with people. Got a couple other questions here.
Have you told Wildwood about this?
Well,
Because they were only doing water. But that sounds wonderful.
it is, yeah. It's yeah. Yeah, so Wildwood is in some degree of active dialogue with us. Yeah, part of why we're relocating to that part of the country is try to work with some of the other ministries that have asked us to help them. So we'll see what happens going forward. Yeah. Okay. Other questions here?
Do you know anything about vibration plates for osteoporosis?
What for osteoporosis?
Vibration plates.
Vibration plates. So, so osteoporosis is a common problem, thinning of the bones. And the bones are interesting. Bones are strengthened in response to stress. And you thought all stress was bad. Do you know what the highest risk occupation for osteoporosis is? What is it? No, worse than sedentary. Worse than standing. Astronauts. And weightlessness. Because the more weight that your frame bears, the stronger the bones become. Now, this is actually one of the advantages of carrying extra weight, one of the few. Carrying more weight puts more stress on your bones, and you tend to have better bone. Now, I see some people that are obese and have osteoporosis, but it's much less common. So, anything that jumping, vibrating. I haven't seen the data. Sonia, have you seen data on vibrating plates as to whether that vibration, whether that helps? We know jumping, for example, is very effective. Yeah, so jumping definitely does, but the problem is jumping puts a lot of stress on your joints as well. Okay, so just be careful you don't throw out your knees because you're trying to, jump rope at 75 at 472 pounds. I know none of you are in that category. Yeah, Sonia's saying be careful you don't cause a compression fracture or something with too much stress on the bones.
One of the things that I heard about was go for a walk, which is good. Number 2, carry a backpack on your back that has weight, and they mentioned 30, 40 pounds. Well, I know what 45 pounds is because that's what I carried in the service. And that's a pretty good pack.
Yeah, it is true. Now, so the backpacks, ergonomically, as far as body mechanics, are not as good as the weighted vests. So they have studied this for osteoporosis. They actually make vests that you can add weights to. If you get one of those, start with the lowest weight you can. Don't just load it up with weight and say, well, I'm going to start doing jumping jacks, and you're likely to have some orthopedic issues, okay? So, but if you're going to use a weighted vest, start with it light, and then gradually you can add some, weight each week more. That's going to keep the closer the weight is to your trunk, okay, the better it is. The more so if you have a backpack that's way out here, that puts a lot of torque on your spine. Whereas if the weight is close, that's going to put more downward stress, which is what you want, and not, abnormal stresses on the discs as well as on the bone. Another question?
I'll let your wife go first out of total respect.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I just was going to comment on the vibration. I just put it into the doximity. And it says that the evidence for whole body vibration therapy in osteoporosis is mixed and generally does not support meaningful improvements in bone mineral density, but it may offer benefits for muscle strength and fall prevention.
Okay, so from what the data that's out there now, she's looking at some, a source that looks at summary data, medical source, and she's saying it can help your balance. It can also help significantly, I think, if you have too much money, you don't know what to do with your funds. I think you can find some systems that will help lighten your wallet quite a bit, some of them, but probably not the most effective for osteoporosis. Okay, you had a question too.
I enjoy, due to my wife's discipline, exercise in the gym, working out, strengthening.
Mm-hmm.
She pushes protein. I was born and raised on a farm. If we didn't eat it on a farm, we didn't go buy it. So it was 99% vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
I have some friends that's probably going to be looking at this, and they're going to say straight out, black people are not made for vegetables. You wanna comment on that myth?
Well, it's an interesting observation. Some people have told me that when we all have perfect bodies in the new earth, we'll all be black. And if that is the case, in the original Garden of Eden, the diet was quite succinctly articulated in Genesis 1, verse 29. Adam and Eve were given a diet that was wholly plant-based. Okay? Go ahead and look at it. Should we look at it? Genesis 1:29. Let's just take a look here. Let's make sure I'm not telling you something that's not true. Genesis 1:29. We've got a good New King James Version right here. And here's how it renders it. God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. New International Version, not New King James. So what was the food? It was all plant-based. Okay, we got some ladies here who are going to either help me out or make it more difficult.
Both of us are from Africa. I don't know where he comes from. In Africa, our diet is vegetables. Israel, when we eat meat and chicken, only on special occasions. So we grew up with beans and vegetables.
Okay.
So the black thing say it must be an American thing, not an African thing. Because in Africa, it's vegetables.
So where in Africa are you from? Just so we have our geography straight. Where in Africa?
Zambia.
Zambia, okay.
And I'm from the Caribbean, similar like her. We hardly had much meat to eat. However, I'm hearing now that, some vegetarians, they're not really in good condition. Some doctors are saying that some of the sickest people I've seen are vegetarians. But then I'm learning now one main reason for that. We concentrate more on a lot of plants and vegetables. But the one thing that we're not eating, we haven't learned that yet, is the seeds. Get the seeds, you get your oils, your essential oils, and you get your protein and whatever. We're not adding in the seeds, even avocado seed, your pumpkin seeds, your sunflower seeds. That's what we're missing in what you just read, seed-bearing food. We're missing the seeds. We're just eating the plant, the green things. Put your seeds in for your oils and your your other trace minerals and minerals. I'm just learning that for the
Okay,
past
well,
few months.
I'm gonna confess, since you caught me here. I'll confess. I usually don't tell people what I ate for breakfast. But in addition to my wife's homemade granola and fruit, I put finely ground seeds, so finely ground that you would call it tahini, on my cereal. Now, some of you may not want to do that because tahini, which is ground sesame seeds, I've been told is an acquired taste. I was reminded of this at a Thanksgiving meal. I have developed quite a liking for tahini, and I've informed people that anything that's orange, I like to put tahini on it. So if you give me cooked carrots or squash or sweet potatoes, I'll put tahini on. I won't put butter or other things. And my wife had made some healthy pumpkin pie. You can actually make healthy pumpkin pie. We had a young man over as our guest. He was eating, and I looked around. There was no tahini out. Pumpkin pie, all of you know what color it is, right? Orange. What do I put on everything orange? Tahini. There you go. So I said, I need to get some tahini. And I forewarned this guy. He was really enjoying the pumpkin pie. I said, I'm just going to put some of this tahini on. I really enjoy it. And you don't have to use any. It's fine. And so I put a bunch of tahini on my pumpkin pie. I was just enjoying it. And our kids were younger then. They observed this young man. Did he put like a little bit of tahini on there? He followed my example, huh? Despite my warnings, he followed my example. And what did he do with that pie after that? Did you hear what she said? One bite with the tahini and that was it. Okay? So ease into some of these things, okay? Yeah, don't say, well, something was distasteful, I'll never try it again. Some of these are acquired tastes. I will tell you an interesting research study along these lines. They looked at the foods that are most powerful in phytochemicals. They have the most health-giving substances, and they often tend to have a bitter taste, okay? So I know one of you told me don't talk about sugar here, but the surprising downside of sugar that most people, I don't know if I've heard anyone talk about this, and I don't talk about it much, but when you educate yourself to really like these sweet things, you lose your appreciation for some of the things that are more bitter, stronger flavors, and those are the things that are your nutritional powerhouses. Yeah, by actual observation. Go ahead.
Some of the things I've noticed too is everyone promotes protein, but too much protein is also bad for us.
It is, you're right.
Because our kidneys can't
No, you're exactly
filtrate
right.
all the protein.
Yeah.
So we have to do that in moderation too. Because I have gout and I know that there are certain foods if I eat, it really lets me know.
Yeah.
with
Yeah, when it
protein.
comes to gout, so you're right, many of the high protein foods, your meats, are problems. But another big problem for gout is high fructose corn syrup. So high fructose corn syrup is a major trigger for gout.
How much more time do you have?
We can go till 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have a testimony on the diet, like you were talking. I've been a vegetarian for a long time, but I would eat a lot of sweet stuff, cakes, sugary tea every morning. But I was convicted to not eat sugar, not to drink too much of the teas, and walk. And bread. I kind of cut down on bread. I restarted eating bread, but now I need to go back because I can feel how tired and weak I am. But vegetables, rice, and I would eat like tortillas instead of bread, flat things without yeast, and I lost a lot of weight.
Okay.
A lot of weight. I think I would say maybe a good 60 pounds.
60 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. But the walking really helped a lot, and staying away from sugar. Sugar is not our friend.
Okay, since we got into sugar, I got to tell you a story here. And so some of you, you see a health lecture, or you hear about a health lecture, you say, oh, this guy was a vegetarian all his life. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I have to tell you, I was on a pretty bad lifestyle growing up. Some of you heard me mention I was not raised a Seventh-day Adventist. And when God started getting my attention about health, one of the problems I had was sugar. I could not go to bed at night unless I had some sweet food, usually ice cream or cookies or cake. You guys following along with me? Maybe some of you can understand. So got to the point where the Lord was just convicting me. I had to make a clean break with this stuff. It was a real problem. Now, some of you say, well, you're exaggerating. Your lifestyle couldn't have been that bad as a young man. Well, I do remember even as a high school student, I did have at least one good health habit. And that was, this may be surprising to you, as a high school student, you know what I never failed to eat? Breakfast. How many of you are impressed? Well, just wait a minute. Let me explain. So I'd get to school in the bus. I took a bus to school. I'd go right down to the cafeteria, and I'd go to those vending machines, and I'd buy a candy bar and a Coke. No, really. Every morning. So why I'm telling you this story is because I was eating so much sugar, and I just said, I have to make a complete break with this. The Lord helped me to do it. And the amazing thing is my tastes changed. This is where I'm trying to help you see this, because it's not like, oh, now you're going to, these are my favorite foods. And it really struck me some years later when I was in a social situation. I probably hadn't had ice cream for 3 or 4 years, maybe even more. Probably something like that. And these people come with ice cream. Put it in front of me. They also even had cookies on that plate. So, but I didn't want to eat them. And I ended up, when no one was looking, putting the cookies in my pocket. How many of you realize that wouldn't work with ice cream? So what do you do with the ice cream? I didn't want to eat it. I started eating it slowly. The cookies are apparently gone. If I eat this slowly, some of it will melt. No one expects you to lick up all that stuff. And as I'm eating that ice cream, used to be like my favorite food, I'm getting nauseated. It's so rich and so sweet, I'm feeling sick. Lots of research shows what I experienced. You change your lifestyle dramatically, you develop new enjoyments. You develop a distaste for the high fat, high sugar, high sodium foods you used to enjoy. They become distasteful. So we're not asking you to make a choice between being healthy and being happy. The way the Lord made us, if you make some major decisions, stick with them. Don't reward yourself. If I was rewarding myself every week with ice cream, what does that do? That just keeps the desire alive. But I stopped eating it for several years, and when I had it again, it was disgusting. Okay? Okay, you have a question for us?
No, it's also, remember the addictive power of sugar, even more addictive than heroin when they really did the study. And then I've learned also it's not just the quantity, it's the consistency of the variety of foods like what we got in the Garden of Eden. Of these you may freely eat. Being consistent. You don't have to eat a lot. Eat the different ones that you choose. All of that I'm learning now. Consistency is one of the keys, not really the volume and the amount of what we eat.
Okay. Thank you for that insight. Anything else that you have questions about? I see a hand up here in the third row.
Actually, this was in addition to what you were saying, if you avoid sugars and things like that. But I've found I don't have that power unless I have prayer behind it too.
Amen.
Big
Amen.
time.
Yeah, these decisions and you mentioned the addiction aspect. That's why I tried to mention to you earlier on that if the Holy Spirit is convicting you about something, He's committed to give you power. But yes, there are some things that are just that we can't control, and it doesn't matter who you are. It's very interesting to me, because I've worked with a lot of people with a lot of different habits. There can be some people that are very disciplined in one area. They have absolutely no ability to control some other aspect. Okay, So it doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're weak. I mean, look at these athletes, okay? Professional athletes, do they have to be disciplined? Yeah. But have you ever heard of a professional athlete who had a drug problem or a gambling problem? How could that be? Well, it's because all of us, there's things that Satan tempts all of us with, and some of those things we can't have victory over unless God, you could say any, James says what? All good gifts, come from above, come from God. Yes, any good change ultimately is God helping you, but sometimes you just realize physically, emotionally, whatever, the only way you can have the victory is if God gives it to you, and prayer, and yeah, it's powerful. Another question there? Over here?
Don't ask him about alcohol.
Why not? I assume that you are familiar with Walter Veith.
Uh-huh.
Just recently, I was watching one of his videos, and it came up about Ellen White has advised on many things, and he brought this particular thing into the scope of not using milk and sugar. And he said that some acquaintances of his or contemporaries of his in the scientific field did some studies and showed how pertinent that was, with that either one of those items separately didn't really affect the metabolism all that much, but combining the two did definitely see a spike in something. I don't remember what he said. And now, my question here is, would that be true also of plant-based milks? Or was it just dairy milk that would do this? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'll make a couple of comments. So first of all, it is generally true that detrimental lifestyle practices have a cumulative effect, a geometric effect, not just a arithmetic effect. In other words, it's not just adding up, it's multiplying the problems. So this is a general principle. When it comes to the plant-based milks, they're not innocuous, depending on what you're consuming. I mean, some of them are literally loaded with sugar, okay? So it doesn't mean, again, so, we're talking here, you mentioned Ellen White. She said the thing we should emphasize in health is something better. Okay, that was one of the key concepts. So is soy milk in general something better than cow's milk? Most definitely. Absolutely no question. Does that mean that's the ideal thing? We should all be drinking as much soy milk as we can? Well, probably not, okay? What's the best beverage to be drinking? It's water, okay? You say, but I really just, Dr. DeRose, special Sabbath meal, we always have some cookies and milk, and I switched from, dairy to soy milk. Is it wrong for me to have a half glass of soy milk with my organic, low-sugar cookies that I'm making? I mean, I would say that's definitely something far better than what most people are eating. So don't let anyone make the health message so restrictive that you can't do it. You just want to throw in the towel. That's the other way Satan works. He just keeps ratcheting it up until you just say, well, how can I do this? I told you I used to run a weight loss program. You know what the saddest thing for me was? Was the people that had these artificial expectations of how much they should weigh. So you know what I would tell people their ideal weight was? Well, you're close. I would say it's what you weigh when you're on an ideal program. They said, but I can't be on an ideal program. And I say, well, then your best weight is what you weigh when you're on the best program you can be on. And they say, but but that's what, I'm on that right now, and I weigh 250, Dr. DeRose. I said, then that's the best weight for you. Because we all have genetic factors, we have early life history factors, and what was sad to me is I'd see someone lose 100 pounds. Maybe they started at 320. Okay, they're down to 220, but their sister, who's the same height as them, is 150. Okay? And they're going to get down from 220 to 150. Well, it's impossible for them unless they're starving themselves and exercising 8 hours a day, and it's just not going to happen. Okay? So what happens? They can't do it, they're a failure, and the next time I see them, they're up to 340. Do you see why that would be tragic? And what was the problem? The problem is either the world tells you something, or you get this idea, or you have someone, well-meaning person in your church that every week they give you a different health principle that you're supposed to be following, until the point where you just say, well, forget it all. I can't, just live eating, sawdust and distilled water. Okay? Which, by the way, is true if you're wondering. Okay. It is just about 4 o'clock. If someone has a real quick question, I will try to answer it before the clock strikes 4. Once it does, we are finished. I'm not going to rush off if some of you have burning questions before I leave individually, but is there a final question, or should we leave that final time for some representative of the church to have closing prayer for us?
Does anybody have a special thank you they would like to offer this gentleman if you don't have a question?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. You want to close us out with prayer?
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
We appreciate you taking the time and coming up. I'm not sure how much they're going to pay you, but I'll take a cut of it if you'd like.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, we really do appreciate it. Never heard of you before you got here, but I love you already, and I hope we have the opportunity to see you back again.
That was so kind of you, because you said I'd never heard of you before, and I hope to never hear of you again. But you're so thank you.
Let's thank God. Father, thank you for the joy of being able to socialize and have people that can give us the kind of messages and remind us from whence we came, and all of the love and the provisions that you have made to take care of our bodies, take care of ourselves, and honor you, and it's above everything else, Lord. In all that we say and we do, and the purposes of why we want to do the things that we do and say, let it be motivated by honoring you. In Jesus' name, amen.